Hi, this is Irfan from the Universe Guru, and today I'm going to be talking about how to save money on cruise. A lot of people think that cruise is one of the most expensive vacations. If you're really little smart about it and you do some research, cruise is actually not that expensive. If you look at the amount of entertainment you get, what's included in there, the food and all those other things. So a lot of times for the other vacations, people don't count everything. If you count everything, cruise is an all-encompassing entertainment, and it's a blast. So don't underestimate that, and it's almost spring season, believe it or not. And so if you're planning a cruise, here are some tips on how to save money on a cruise. As we always say, research, right? So research in advance, and most importantly, enjoy the research, because as you do the research, you will learn stuff and make that part of the entertainment as well. Don't think that you're going to figure everything out in one session. Allocate some time. You learn something, sleep over it, learn something more. So start the process a little bit earlier so that you can kind of gather all the information and again enjoy that and be very objective about it. A lot of times, you would hear some things that may not be true. A lot of times people will say this is what you do on a cruise, or you should do on a cruise. Decide it for yourself, right? So only consider things that will make you happier or make life fun for you. So here are some tips. First of all, the most important thing is which port city is the option for you. We are lucky enough; we have a couple of ports that not far away. Houston, we have one in the backyard, and then also we have one in New Orleans, which is kind of driving distance. That if you don't have a port that is in driving distance, and by the way, if you have one, that makes life much easier and it's going to make your planning much easier. Even then, you will need a lot of research. But if you have to actually travel someplace on a plane, then double the time or triple the time on the research you have to do, because then it makes things very complicated. What are the flight times? Because then you have to decide what are the best options for flying in and out, matching with your itinerary for the cruise, and then you kind of have to do it iteratively, because when you look at the cruise options, that may not jive with the best flight options. So if you have to fly, then obviously there's a lot of planning involved. Also, one of the things that people get confused about in terms of money is when they're looking at the prices. Whatever site you look at, people say, oh, this one is more expensive, this is less expensive. You have to be looking at dollars per person per day. So that is another point, number of days. Some cruises may be 4 days, some may be 7 days, some may be even more than that. So one, obviously figure out what's the right amount of time. You don't want to start with a very, very long cruise to begin with, because what if you don't like it too much? You don't want to be stuck on a boat for too long. But in terms of dollar comparison, you want to be looking at dollars per person per day, because it's not fair to compare the price of a 4-day cruise with a 7-day cruise unless you are looking at it on a per day basis. Just like, if you stay in a hotel, you'd expect to pay every day. So look at that from that standpoint, and that's a kind of a good benchmark. So if you're comparing different options, dollars per person per day, in general, you will see that the longer the cruise is, the dollars per person per day will go down, because it's incremental, right? So they're already there, and with one extra day, it's not gonna be that much cost. So therefore, it's typically cheaper for more days you tack on. And also, it may be of interest to you anyway, because for us, the excursion days, the port days were more exciting, because we get to see a whole different country, a whole different place. So if it's a 4-day cruise and you only get to see one port, because a lot of the time was just to get to that area, so you'll be the sea days. And so for one additional day or 2 additional days, you may be able to see 2 or more, extra countries. So if that is something that interests you, do consider at least a 7 or 8 day cruise. That way you get, 3 or 4 even more, ports. The other thing that is important in terms of saving money is flexibility. Obviously, if you start looking at the prices, it will vary a lot just by the time, right? So one week it may be this price, and just obviously supply demand. So another week it may be much cheaper. Like for example, right now, before the actual spring season, when a lot of people are traveling, before that time, it will be much cheaper. And so in the off peak, you can easily see those trends. When you go on those sites, you will, try different dates. You'll see that. If you're a little flexible, if your schedule allows that, obviously you want to, travel on the time where it's cheaper. So that is one aspect that goes into saving money. The other thing is you don't have to sign up, especially if you're doing it for the first time and you are not even sure what is fun, what's not fun on a cruise. Don't be tempted to sign up for too many things. Like, oh, let's just sign up for this in advance and sign up for this in advance. The soda, package, endless bubbles or something. Don't, because there's a lot of stuff that is already included. So I would say that in the first cruise that you do, try to see what's included, because there's more things that you can actually leverage in just what's even included, right? There's a lot of entertainments, a lot of food. Yeah, soda is not included, but juices are. So there's plenty of stuff. So don't be tempted to sign up for too many things. And then if you miss something, you can buy obviously that one soda or whatever. If you're craving it, you can actually buy it. But don't be stuck having to, like drink like 7 or 8 sodas a day just to break even kind of thing. Also, no need to spend a whole lot of money on board either, right? There's a lot of entertainments, like a lot of good restaurants. You can go in the buffet areas, and also you can go to a sit-down restaurants, and those are pretty good high-end places. Yeah, the food may be a little bit bland because they have to cater to so many people. So it's not, I mean, if you like very spicy food, we were lucky, the cruise we were on, they had an Indian food restaurant, the tandoor, and so that, satisfied our spicy cravings. But there's plenty of options. So if there's no need to sign up for that $60 steak night or whatever, right? Because if you're into steak, do it at a time where you don't have a free food available. Why do it at a time when you already paid for free food? So I don't advise on that. But if that's something that brings you happiness, then obviously it's your call. Another key thing is excursions, right? A lot of people say, okay, what should I do? You can buy excursions on the cruise ship itself. And by the way, I'm talking on Carnival, about Carnival, but most of the cruises are similar. So so you can buy the excursions off, up front when you even before the cruise starts through the company that is the cruise company. You can buy it on the boat. You can buy it on the day of it. When you get off, you can buy something off there. My advice is, again, do the research depending on the port city. So, for example, we went to Rotan and Belize and Cozumel. And so the research that I did, we figured out that, for Cozumel, there was no need to book an excursion. We can just get off. There was a lot of things right there, and then you can just take a taxi, and it was very easy. And you can go to a lot of points of interest, and that was much cheaper than actually buying an excursion. For the other two places, I did buy an excursion, and I did buy it online before the cruise, but I did not do it through Carnival. I just did it I did the research, and it happened to be Cruise Excursioneers happened to be the site, and that was like much cheaper, for almost the price of one person that I would have paid with Carnival. Our family of 5, did each of those the excursions. So it's a difference of night and day. So again, do your research. Also, do the research on what kind of excursion you like. Don't just get caught up into this is what people typically do on those. See what interests you. So, for example, for us, we wanted to get a whole sample. So we bought an excursion where we got a sample of the whole city. So right, the whole thing, a guided tour that covered beaches and all that. But if you want to go to one place and you spend the whole time there, that's up to you. So decide what you like and do the research, and you don't have to buy it through the cruise company. It's typically going to be cheaper offline, or in some cases you may not even have to. You can just buy, for example, in Cozumel, we just walked around, and we had done the research. We knew there was a beach in access anyway, in walking distance from the port. And then we just got a taxi, off the street, and we just negotiated a price, and for a couple of hours he just drove around, Cozumel and showing us different places. Another thing is, what can you bring on? A lot of people, bring a lot of water on board because, water bottles, if you need it for your room, you can take them on. There's some guidelines on what's included. What we figured out was if you want those plastic water bottles, if you buy it through, for example, Carnival before the trip online, that was about the same price what you pay in a supermarket anyway. And that was delivered to the room. So that was, again, saving money. Or in this case, not saving money, it's about the same, but, you saving yourself from the hassle of carrying water bottles all the way along. And so just it was very convenient when we got in a room, those water bottles were there. And for us, obviously, water bottles were important because, we have a baby. So for the milk and all that. And So we needed that. But even for you, if you don't have a baby, waters, and then also you can bring soda. So if you really want soda, there's some limits on how much soda can you bring and in what kind of size of containers. So if you really want to take soda, yeah, you can carry soda, but water you don't have to. You can just buy it up front. In terms of packing, the cruise companies are pretty lenient about how much you can bring. So there's typically not a constraint. I think you can bring more luggage. You're allowed to bring more luggage than you would ever need. But from a convenience standpoint, obviously you want to pack a little bit light, just so that it's not too cumbersome. And again, it's the lighter you pack, the more fun it is. But also, if you are also traveling on a plane to get there, then it's also money because as you know, most of the flights, unless you have a status with them, you pay for checking in luggage. So the more you bring in, obviously that has to be factored in. Plus, the traveling and the taxi and all that. The more luggage you carry along, the harder it is. So do some research on that as well. And if you're flying in and you're staying in a hotel, one of the things you may want to consider is check if there are any hotels in the area where you can have a parking package. A lot of the hotels near ports where there are cruises, they offer packages. So if you're staying there anyway, it's either included or very small price. You can park your car right there for the length of the cruise, and it's going to be much cheaper than if you park your car, let's say, close to the port. You will be paying 8, 9, 10, 12 whatever dollars per day, so it may be cheaper. Just make sure that they offer a shuttle service to the port, because if the shuttle is not included, you have to take a taxi. Then you have to factor that price in. How much is the back and forth, and is that worth it then or not? Another thing is, a lot of people ask about tips. How to handle the tips. So as you know, when you pay for the price online, first of all, you'll see the price without the tax. And so when you pay, there's some tax that is added on. That's before the trip. But what will happen is during your cruise, before you get off, they will add a certain amount. Like, for example, I think for Carnival it was like $91 or something per person tip. So the question people have is, should I, you have the option to take it off, and because some people are concerned that, what if the crew doesn't get it? Would Carnival pay them the money? So some people take it off and then pay cash to the crew members. I did the research. I actually asked the crew members, and they do actually get it. So don't have to worry about it. Just leave it there, and they will get the money. Trust me. So whatever the amount is, don't take anything off. And and I think it's really fair, because most of those people don't actually make any money. They're only relying on the tip. So if anything, if you want to add, that's great, but they don't take anything off, and they will get the money. And then finally, the question is, where do you actually buy the tickets, right? So you can do the research on different sites. So you can, for example, you can do the research. So if you like the site of the Carnival website itself, I think it's a little bit better than some of the other sites like Expedia and Orbitz and Travelocity and stuff like that. So you can use whatever site you like, but when you're actually buying it, you may realize that the price is about the same for all of them. So buy it from the place where you're getting some extra perks. So the baseline price will be the same, but for example, what we did was we buy it through Expedia. And not only that, we went to Expedia through Mr. Rebates. And that's, we talk about that. So that's a rebate site. So just before going to Expedia, we'd go to Mr. Rebates first and then go to Expedia. And then you also have, if you have an account on Expedia itself. So what happens is you're paying the same price, but now you're getting cash back from Mr. Rebates, plus you're getting points on Expedia. So you accumulate points, which are worth dollars that you can spend as well. And sometimes you get some extra perks. So for example, Expedia was offering $50 per person. So for the same price, the $50. So when we were on board, for each person, there was $50 already credited to our account. So whatever you spend on, or for tips or whatever, in the end, when they do the balance, we already had for 5 people, about $250 added, and then Carnival also added a total of $50. So we already had like a $300 thing on there. So if you bought some soda once in a while or whatever, if you do something, that would come out of that. And so that adds up a lot. I mean, we're talking maybe potentially thousands of dollars. So it could be a lot of cash back. In some cases, Expedia, the Mr. Rebates would offer up to 10% on cruises. So 10% of a couple of $1,000 may be a lot of money. We spent a total of about $2,800 and that included everything. The price for all 5 people, the taxes, tips, and then excursions. And then what we did was we budgeted for one meal every time we did an excursion, one port city. What we did was, because the food was free on the cruise, but we did want to experience like at least one meal, local meal. So what we did was we did the early brunch or breakfast before we got off the boat, and then we spent the whole day there, and we budgeted one meal there. So that way we get to see, taste one local thing. We try to find some very local place where you get the authentic food, because we enjoy that. And then when we came back in the evening, then we got to have the dinner on the boat itself. So we budgeted for one meal. So that was included as well. So one more thing I wanted to mention is one of the things that is part of the planning when you're doing a cruise is the number of people. That can get sometimes a little bit tricky. So depending on the number of people, the reason why it may get tricky is because both from a cost standpoint and from a logistics standpoint, is because let's say you are 2 people, that is pretty nice and easy, right? You book a room. If you increase the number of people, for example, we have 5 people. So one of the constraints we have was most of the boats did not have any room that accommodates 5 people. So now we had to look at permutations for how do we split the people in one room of 2 and one of 3, and again, can we be together? And then obviously we don't want to split the kids and stuff like that. And also incrementally, typically what happens is the more people you have in one room is typically cheaper, because it's about the same size of room, and incrementally one person is not that more expensive, so the cost goes down. So what do we do? So we figured out by research that Carnival does have a boat. It's called Dream, and that accommodates 5 people. So that worked out very nicely for us, both from a cost reasons and from a convenience reason, because we wanted to be all in the same room. Even though, most of the day you'll be together, obviously, but even just for sleeping, but it's much more convenient and to have everything in one room and organized. So we found that room, even that room on Dream. Now, the constraint was that the only cruise available was from New Orleans, and it was worthwhile for us to go and drive the 6 hours to New Orleans to have that room of 5 people, both from a cost standpoint, but also we decided to enjoy New Orleans. So we stayed there, one night, and then we came back, and then we went further east towards Biloxi. So we made that a whole, a massive tour out of that, beyond the cruise. But do factor in that, because and consider different boats, which boat would allow the right people. So do look at the options for how to split the people, or can you fit in a larger room, the incremental cost for one person. So that's again one little slight complexity that you have to factor in. So that's all. Hopefully these are some tips that you can enjoy and use when you're planning your cruise.